welcome back. I had taken a little bit of time off, and I guess in a lot of ways allowed myself to stop recording, which is not a habit I want to get into. So I'm here. We're going to record a couple videos over the next couple days, try to get myself caught up and moving forward. So welcome back to the Mindful Classroom. There's some big things coming your way. I'm going to kind of go consistent. So anybody who's followed anything else I've done, I'm going to put to bed the Karen coaching solutions and take everything under the label of the Mindful Classroom. So you're going to see some information coming up soon on my coaching business and where that's going, but it's now going to fall under the Mindful Classroom so I can unify kind of a marketing strategy of keeping everything together. And at the same time, I am setting up today and tomorrow a college application counseling and writing tutoring program. So you'll see that coming out as well. Today comes in an interesting part because I love in life when ideas seem to unify and line up together. So you see something in a couple different places and it's all the universe sending you the same message. That's what happened to me in many ways. I'm finishing up a book right now, Untangled, Walking the Eightfold Path to Clarity, Courage, and Compassion. It's written by Koshin, Paley, Ellison, who I love the work that he's done in New York City and some of the end-of-life work that he's done, guiding people into the transition into the next phase. And as I was reading this, there's a part that really caught my eye. And it opens with a quote. So it's chapter 14, and I'll read part of this, but it opens with a quote. At some point in life, the world's beauty becomes enough. You don't need to photograph, paint, or even remember it. It is enough. That's Toni Morrison. And then he says, attention is a place of practice. When I was teaching a class recently, people were talking about the challenge of fully paying attention to other people and the world around them. Some noted that it was easier to pay attention to some people more than others, and some felt strong feelings made it hard to pay attention. Some shared visceral memories coming up in their bodies which pulled their attention inward or into the past. Others' attention was impacted by pain or injuries they were wishing would go away. In the end, our attention is impacted by what we don't want to pay attention to, or by the pull of traumatic memories and strong feelings. As a matter of fact, as a matter of participants stated, fully inhabiting our experience, no matter what is happening, undoes our inattention. Why, though, do we need or want to pay attention? What's wrong with taking a ride on the monkey mind? First, we should note that in my understanding of the Zodo Zen tradition, we don't cultivate attention so much in the way of focus or concentration. Instead, we liberate our attention so that we can pay attention in a 360-degree kind of way. Why do we do this? Because the liberation of attention, the expansion of attention, you could say, liberates our wisdom, promotes mental flexibility, and maybe most important, introduces us to the compassion in the whole of our life, moment after moment. The monkey mind, too often, is on the run and missing most of what's actually happening. There is a teaching I call the 4 facets of attention. It's a dynamic way of coming alive to how we are or are not paying attention. This can lead to great delight, even amid experiences that are painful. Now, this may sound counterintuitive, but learning how to pay attention is learning how to ultimately bear witness to what is intimately and to not turn away from it. So often we want to run away. None of us have to practice that. We easily turn away from what's uncomfortable, even from what's delightful. For some of us, truthfully, pleasure and enjoyment can actually be uncomfortable, even threatening. In this chapter, we're going to explore different ways of paying attention and seeing that everything matters. This is resting in the nobility of learning how to ground ourselves in our own experience, in our bones, and on the ground so we can widen out and do something new, not trapped in old patterns, in death. Now, I had just read that, and yesterday The quote on my calendar said, "The sublime may be sensed in every grain of sand, in every drop of water, every flower in the summer, every snowflake in the winter." And that comes from Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, whose book, The Sabbath, I've just read about a month ago, thanks to a recommendation from a former student and friend. And then I think the linchpin that connected these two ideas and held them together arose this morning. I received a text message from a friend and a colleague I had worked with in my quick little return back to teaching at Lower for March and April and some of May. And this was from Insight Timer, and it was today's quote on Insight Timer. "Look at other people and ask yourself if you are really seeing them or just your thoughts about them." So think about that for a minute. When you look at other people, when you meet other people, when you reflect on the people you've met, do you really see them or do you see your thoughts on them? And that's what made all of this really pull together for me. Is it really got me thinking about how we internalize based on what we externalize. How much of what we see in other people comes from our own notions, our own preconceptions. So, for instance, I'm recording this Tuesday, June 4th. If you haven't already, if you don't get this message in time, I apologize. It's primary day. It's time to vote. It makes me reflect on our current political system and how quick we are to judge somebody else based on whether they're going to walk into the primaries and vote as a Republican, they're going to vote as a Democrat, or maybe they're not going to vote in the primaries because they feel themselves as an independent. And the problem is, like the John Kabat-Zinn quote that I just mentioned on how do we really see people or see our judgment of those people, when I hear you are a Democrat or I hear you are a Republican, how fast am I to make some kind of preconceived notion, almost like I can encapsulate who you are based on that one label that you hold? And I think the first thought of it came this morning when I received the text with the quote that I just shared. And real quick, I'll share again. Look at other people and ask yourself if you are really seeing them or just your thoughts about them. And that's struck a really painful memory that made me sad. It was something that I used to see teachers do. And thankfully, I say I used to see it because I'm sure it still happens, but I don't see it as often anymore. We would get a paper list of all of our students. So if I was an 11th grade teacher and I went into school on the first couple of days of orientation and I got my paper list, like, here's my roster, here are the kids that I'm teaching. And the first thing I did, I'm speaking theoretically, the first thing I would watch teachers do, there's a more accurate way to say it, is take that list and go to the 10th grade teachers and ask them about those students. Who's a troublemaker? Who did you have a hard time with? Who should I watch out for? The problem with that is before I've ever met this student, I've judged them. And I didn't look necessarily at what had happened to them last year. Maybe there's a reason they were acting out. Maybe there was some kind of a death in the family or a traumatic event that led them to acting out and working on these frustrations. But instead, I very quickly put them into a classification, assuming they must be this way because they were that way last year. And then I find, and I found this out through most of my life, we receive in life what we expect to receive. Whatever you want to call that. There's, you could say we can manifest something, or you can just say things live up to the expectations we give them. So here's a perfect case where I'm getting the behavior I assume this student is going to give me. Why? Because I treat this student that way. Coming back to my original quote about the way we judge people, sure, they're going to live up to my expectations because all I'm going to see are the qualities that I'm looking for when I look at them. I'm not going to see the myriad of wonderful things that this person does or who they are as a whole person, as opposed to just being this one representation of some political affiliation. And we can make these vast, vast judgments. So, bringing this all together, it's so important in life that we take time to pay attention, to listen to what people say, to watch people's actions, and to really see who they are. And then in doing so, come to an understanding of what we have in common instead of just what's different about us. We spend so much time looking at what's different. And in the same way, pay attention to your habits. You know, obviously there's some good that comes out of social media. I think there's way more harm than good. And unfortunately, the algorithm for most of the social media feeds we play, really, it's an echo chamber. It just keeps giving us the same information again and again and again. And likewise, whether you're tuned into MSNBC or you're tuned into Fox or whatever channel you're getting your news from, they're on a repeat cycle and you're going to hear the same phrases and you're going to hear the same ideas over and over. And pretty soon, when we never walk away from the news and we never walk away from the fear and the anger that it is pushing on us, that fear and anger tends to become reflected in who we are and the way we see the world. And then we see everybody else as an other instead of seeing us all as one together. So I can highly recommend if you're looking for a good book, it'll be back in the library today if you want to take it out from the county library. I'll push Untangled. I've loved the book, Koshin, Paley, Ellison, and it just kind of looks at how we can find clarity and find meaning and find peace in the world around us. And doing so in giving us, Ellison really gives us concrete steps we can take and things we can do. Um, whether that's sitting in prayer for a certain period of time during the day, sitting in meditation. The biggest thing it is giving ourselves quiet, giving ourselves a little bit of time each day to unplug from all the sensory inputs that are coming our way and really reflect in on ourselves. So that's where we are. I apologize if you heard any background noise throughout the whole thing. However, I can't tell you how much I enjoy it. One of the great things about where I live is I'm right across the street from elementary school. So in the warm weather, recess is one of the most wonderful sounds in the world, listening to kids outside playing and screaming and yelling and having fun. So if you heard any of that, I hope you hear the joy in it and not the distraction in it. Peace all. Thank you for listening. I'll talk to you again soon.